It's just wonderful to have you here, and thank you so much for coming. I hope to be helpful today. We're going to be talking about modularization and rubrics. And I'm going to make some assumptions that you already have some ideas about what rubrics are. I'm also going to make some assumptions that you know what units are, units of instructional units are, because modules are the online way of describing what we do when we unitize instruction. I'm hoping that it will begin to prepare you for modularizing your instruction, either for face-to-face, fully online, or hybrid. It's just a great principle, and it's really the principle of creating instructional units, which I suspect you've all been doing for a very long time. And the big idea is that what we do in instruction is we prepare students to actively experience the real world from their own point of view, that they are the performers, and that you as a teacher are supporting their activity, supporting their performance. You know, we're stepping off the stage as the great sages, and rather we are giving students work to do, so that in the process of doing that work, they're performing and they're learning how to do whatever it is you're wanting them to learn. What is modularized instruction? It's a very simple concept. It's the concept of the unit, the chapter, the topic, or the segment of instruction. And it's a self-contained piece of instruction. At the college level, a module be a week in length, but it certainly can be shorter or longer. My modules in my university level courses are typically more than a week. It really depends on the topic and the subject and the content you're building, how long you want your modules to be. I think for younger students, you know, we probably want our modules to be shorter, maybe a module every day, for instance. Why do we modularize? It just expedites your processes. It makes your development of what you want students to be performing easier. And it simplifies updating your course. So one of the beauties of digitization is that when we digitize, whenever we create a unit or a module, that's packaged. And we can simplify it, we can update it, and each year we can get better and better. So it's a really nice way of packaging what you do so that you can reuse it the next year, change it up easily. And then there's consistency for users. Your students know what to expect when you modularize, especially when you create a consistent structure. So your course consists of multiple modules. And in online instruction, it is pretty much a given that modularizing your course is the best way to go. Feel free to call them units if that's what you're most used to, if that's what your students and parents are most used to. You can say Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3. In online instruction, very, very often we just call these modules. It's just a great way to go. So here's how we do it. You start by segmenting, deciding what it is you want students to learn. You put that instruction into segments that are meaningful chunks. Typically, they're self-contained. It might be based on a textbook chapter that your students are working on, a certain topic that your students are working on. Maybe they're studying the ocean, maybe they're studying weather, you know, whatever it is, you're going to package it and you're going to make it inclusive of all kinds of fun activities. Typically highly structured in flow or in sequence, and you might go broad to specific or simple to complex. The design of your module is really up to you. They can be formatted to meet the learning interests and needs of your students and focus on key topics, concepts, problems, case studies, etc. So the big idea is that it's a package of instruction or a unit of instruction, what you're, I know, very used to. Particularly when moving online, it's critical that you modularize. Otherwise, you're lost, frankly, in your class. Your students are lost in your class. Your parents are lost in helping their students in the class. So it is really critical when you go online. But one of the things that happens once a teacher has gone online and has learned how to modularize and has packaged, guess what you want to do? At that point, what you typically want to do, and I've seen this happen hundreds and hundreds of times, is you want to go hybrid. You want, even if you're going to be teaching face-to-face, you're still going to want to use that online package of instruction that guides your students through their work. These are powerful. It's a powerful way of teaching. Some of us believe that the very best instruction on earth is hybrid. How do you do it? You decide on a regular delivery schedule for modules, and that might be daily, weekly, every Monday, Wednesday, or Friday. You're going to be flexible with yourself, but it can vary. You might have daily activities in one module, but then the next week assign a whole week-long module. You don't want to be rigid with modules, but they're going to help you a lot in building your class as well as in running your class, and it'll help your students a lot too. First step, once you decide on what the content's going to be, you decide on a consistent structure. This list of 8 here are very often included in the structure of a module. I always begin a module with an attention getter, something that pulls students in to believe that what they're about ready to get going, what they're about ready to do during the course of this module is something that interests them, something that gets their attention, it's relevant, they have confidence that they can succeed, and they're satisfied that they'll be satisfied once they do finish this module. So some kind of attention getter that pulls them in and gets them excited about the topic. And then you might want to clue them in on what they already know that's going to support their learning in the module. Then you might want to say, okay, now you already know this. These are your new objectives. The next step in this learning are these objectives. And then give them a rubric. And tonight we're going to go through how to develop a rubric. You give them that rubric, and it allows them to know just exactly what's expected so that they can perform successfully. Then you decide on what's the content. What are all the tools? What's all the information? What are all the skills that I need in order to be successful at doing the tasks of this modular unit? And then you give demonstrations. You might have links to YouTubes that show them how to be successful. You might want to provide lots of examples, maybe non-examples, readings, all the content of your module that will prepare your students to succeed. What are the activities that they have to complete? And then what is the feedback that they're going to get? And what I'm going to encourage you to think about is using rubrics for feedback. And I suspect you already do a lot of that, but tonight I want to show you how to do that using the Canvas tools that are going to be similar. Building a rubric is going to be similar in Google Classroom as well. And then a very good thing to add in a unit, and you might put a lot of this up in your content section, is that you ask students to reflect. How does the content of this unit apply to me? How does this help me? How's this going to help me in the future? How does it help me now? Just giving them some kind of opportunity for reflection is very powerful. Okay, so what are rubrics? This is an example rubric that I'm giving you, a writing rubric that I just picked up off the web. You decide as the teacher what the criteria is you're going to be grading, that you're going to be looking for in the student's particular project. And then you decide on the levels of acceptability of that criteria. So, what's unacceptable, and that would be 0 points. What's acceptable, maybe you give 1 point. Target, 2 points, and exemplary, 3 points, for instance. You decide on all of this when you build a rubric. You decide on the criteria first, and then you decide on the levels of acceptability, and then you decide how many points. You decide how many points for each of these levels as well, and then you decide on the ultimate points that add up, okay? So that's what a rubric looks like, and again, I'm guessing you already know that, but we're going to focus on how to do it in Canvas tonight. Your rubric is a type of scoring guide that assesses and articulates specific components and expectations for any assignment, even for kindergartner. So rubrics can be used for a variety of assignments, research papers, group projects, portfolios, presentations. When they're grading people on the Olympics, I'm going to assume that they've got a list of criteria that they're looking at and they're scoring while they observe a performance. And we do that a lot as teachers, I hope. We observe as a student gives a presentation or a dance or whatever it is that you're wanting them to do, and you're watching them do it and you grade it as they do it. Well, this gives you a tool for that process, for grading while you observe students perform. Just a really helpful tool. I will tell you that the thing that I dislike most about teaching is grading. And because of rubrics, I just am okay with grading these days. Why? Why rubrics? Well, they inform students of what you expect. So if you give your students a rubric at the beginning of a module, then they'll know what it is they're going to be assessed on. And so you show them that rubric and they know what to do. And the likelihood of them succeeding is much better because you've told them ahead of time what it is you want them to be able to do. So it's a great way of informing students of what you expect. It helps them become more aware of their learning process and progress because they can look at that rubric, they can refer back to it as they're progressing through your module or unit, and brings that awareness, that level of awareness as to what their processes are, right? And I'll be darned if it doesn't improve work through timely and detailed feedback. I just have seen this over and over and over again, that students improve tremendously based on the rubric that you've given them. They get to where they can actually do, succeed. It's just a great thing. I'll speak for myself. For me, a rubric is just a wonderful thing because it makes assessing the work efficient, consistent, objective, and quick. When I was teaching K-12, I was an English teacher. I had so many papers to grade that pile and pile and pile up. Well, had I had digital rubrics back in those days, so much better, so much easier, very, very efficient way of giving students feedback regarding how they're doing. It allows you to evaluate an assignment knowing implicitly what makes that assignment excellent or mediocre or in need of improvement. It's just a great tool for you to assess the students and give them feedback. Refines teaching methods by evaluating the rubric result. Of course, a rubric is digital, so you can change it up, right? You can always add to it. And I very, very often find that my rubric has been inadequate, that I need to add more criteria, that I maybe need to be a little bit more discriminating in how I assess that criteria. And so you keep building your rubrics, get better and better year after year. And you save time in the long run as grading and improving feedback on student work becomes more streamlined. I love it when rubrics are tied to the gradebook in Canvas, and so that you just click on a student's work, you click on the cell in that particular activity in the gradebook, and it takes you to their work, and you grade it, and boom, the grade goes up to the gradebook. It's quite lovely. What you have to do when you're designing your rubrics is make some decisions about how you are going to structure your rubric. I could see as a teacher that you might want to structure your rubric according to the subject area. So you might have every day what are the math competencies, what are the language competencies, the social studies, the science competencies, whatever it is that you want to, how you want to construct that module and structure that module is up to you. And you might want to do it this way, I think, particularly as an elementary teacher. What I do at the university level and at the high school level is a large project assessing rubric. You list that criteria, as I showed you on that one example, and then you assign points for that criteria, and gives the students a guide for working through their project. And then they turn it in digitally, and they might turn in pictures, they turn in photos. I have some projects where they turn in photos of what they've built at home, and they send that on, and then I can grade it. Here's how you do it. Canvas helps you develop your rubric based on templates. If you're using Google Classroom, I'm sure it's got a rubric builder, it has to. You examine an assignment for your course. You outline the elements, the critical attributes, the criteria, in other words. And then it's got to be something that you can look at and measure. And then you create a range of excellent, good, unsatisfactory, whatever that range might be. And then you add descriptors that qualify each level of performance. And the criteria has to be clearly differentiate from one performance level to another. And then use a numerical scale. You add that scale, you add those points, and then you rework the rubric based on feedback. So it's something that you keep year after year after year after year. With all that said, I'm going to say what I do, which is not exactly that. So I'm going to show you two different approaches. One is the approach where you've got the criteria, and then you have the level of acceptability. However, and I could see this happening at any grade level. However, what I do is I have a list of criteria, and it's a yes or a no. It's either 1 point or 2 points, or whatever I decide the weight of that particular criteria is, and they either get that number of points or no points. Say yes or a no. And that's because the projects that my students are doing they're big, and they have so much criteria associated with them. So either they did it or they didn't. Now what I want to do is go to Canvas and show you this process, because I'm hoping that y'all wanting pretty badly to do this. I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint, and I'm going to go in and share the Canvas screen. Okay, so we're going into one of my classes now. This is a class I'm actually teaching right now. I'm going to assume that if you're a kindergarten teacher and you're delivering things through Canvas, it's going to be highly visual. It's going to have a very different look to it than this. But this is the home page for this class. So let's look at modules first, just to get a sense of how they look, and then we'll go into creating them. If I go to modules, and I have a preliminary module that kind of sets the stage for the class. And then I have 8 modules in this semester-long class. So I told you they can vary in length. It's up to you entirely. You might have a day-long module. You might have a 3-week module. It's all up to you. So I have 8 modules. You see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And as they go flying by, you might notice that they each have the same structure. This is very intentional. It helps me design my modules, and it will help you design your modules to decide ahead of time what you want the structure of your modules to be. And of course that can change up, but in this case, my modules always have an attention getter. This is why this is important to you. They always have learning objectives, what it is I expect them to do. They always have assignments and assessments, and those are all tied to rubrics, except this one that has 0 points. They have to introduce themselves and report their theme in a video. And then the foundations. These are all the things that I believe will make them successful, and typically actually do make them successful. So it's a consistent structure. Each module has that structure. And each assignment and assessment has a rubric associated with it. See, this one is a 5-point rubric. This one is a 10-point rubric. That's the module. And you build your modules. In Canvas, you make decisions about what to include in your module. So how do we do that? We go up to the top, and if I want to add a module, you go plus module. That's how you do it. You click on plus module, and then Canvas always adds at the bottom. So I'm going to add a module, and I'm going to call this module reading. I'm going to add that. Then, as I said, Canvas is pretty consistent. It adds it at the bottom when you add something. And then these little grab tools here, that's a grab tool. I can pull it up, I can move it. So don't worry about the order in which you create things. You can move anything in Canvas by grabbing these little grab tools, okay? So if I want a module on reading, of course there's nothing here yet. I haven't put anything here yet, right? So if I want to put something in this module, this tells me I can drop files here. I can choose files that already exist, or plus, I want to add something. So that plus tool is really nice. It just tells me. So I'll click on plus. I want to add something. Now, Canvas gives me choices as to what to add. I can add an assignment. I can add a quiz. I can add a file, something I already have created. I can add a page. I can add a discussion. And then it gives me the external URL. There are different things I can add. I typically build my modules with pages. And I do that because I want to keep that consistent structure that is so important in a unit or module. So I add a page. I click on page, and then it gives me a choice, new page, and I'll call this new page, it's reading, so I'll call it characters. You can call it whatever you want to. And then I add it. It goes right there in my module. So there it is. There's nothing in it. So if I click on it, I want to work in it, I want to build it, I say edit, and up comes my editor. And this is an editor, like it's like a word editor. I can edit, I can add all kinds of, I can add pictures, I can add music, I can add YouTube files, which are, it's really nice to be able to add those. I can add lots and lots of stuff. It's just basically a text editor up here. So I can build a page. And when I say save, that page goes down under characters. Okay, it's got stuff in it, whatever I've added. You go through and you do that. And then you've got a module, and you can decide, can add a quiz to it, save. Well, I want to share with you about the 3 dots. The 3 dots are a useful tool in Canvas. 3 dots lets you delete, view the page history. The things that I use the most are delete if I want to get rid of something, or if you want to change anything, that's where you go, is with these 3 dots. So if I want to go back to my module and look at it and see it, I've got to scroll down to my reading module. So I use YouTube a lot for attention getters, I will tell you. Introduction to Constructivist Pedagogies is our first module. It's module 1, and I'll just go to it. Attention getter is, this one's a little vast. I've got a YouTube here of Darling Hammond giving a wonderful booster about constructivism and how valuable it is. Then these characters talking about constructivism and how valuable it is. And then I've written a little piece to kind of keep them with me. And then project-based learning, because that's really significant with constructivist learning, of course. It's the way we spend the semester, is working on a project that I've created a big rubric for that I'll show you. So it's just trying to bring them in, get them interested, get them excited. Very often I use YouTube's. So that's the attention getter for module 1. Let's see what module 2's attention getter is. Culturally responsive teaching. And this is a moving little piece that gets them going, thinking about how to be culturally responsive in their classroom. Yeah, just kind of bring them in, pull them in with something that grabs them, right? And then I've got lots of links in my foundational material, lots of content, some visuals and whatnot. But if they read all of this, you'll see that it gets pretty heavy. Creating modules is a matter of clicking on plus and then adding pages or quizzes or assignments or discussions as you want to, as you build modules. It's fairly common for people to use discussions. My students are so busy working together as it is that a discussion, I think I have 2 discussions in this class in 2 different modules, and that might be it. So these are the choices in Canvas. You may have different choices depending on how your administrators have set up your Canvas environment. You definitely have, I'm certain you have the modules, and I'm also quite certain that you have rubrics as a choice. Rubrics. Click on this. And you can see that I've built a zillion different rubrics for this class. I don't use them all. They're sitting here, and I use some of them. I build different ones, and I don't throw them away. I keep them, but then I don't necessarily use them every time I teach the class. I'm going to add a rubric, and there we go. Look at there. Canvas makes it easy. Add rubric. And so remember that it's going to be at the bottom because it's new. So I'm going to create this rubric. Since our module is on reading and characters, I think I'll say I'm going to make this reading presentation. Yeah, reading presentation. So when you go to create a rubric, you want to say what it is that you're grading, right? So that's the title. That's easy enough. And then the next step is to decide on your criteria. And honestly, in my opinion, one of the real strengths of rubrics is that it requires that you as a teacher decide what you're looking for and decide what you want students to be able to do. And you can only help them if you know what you want them to be able to do. So it requires that you do that, take that analytical step of determining what you value, what you consider, what you're looking for in a presentation. And honestly, you can go online and find rubrics on almost any topic you can think of. There are existing rubrics for you to pull. You don't have to create your own, but then you do have to move it into, to use it, coupled with the grade book and with assignments and whatnot, you do have to put it into, cut and paste the criteria down into your tool, if it's Canvas or Google Classroom, whatever. So I want to add criteria. You can see here that there's a plus criteria. Again, the beauty, the elegance of Canvas makes it pretty easy. What I've discovered over time is that this one stays here, this description of the criteria. If I add criteria, that's going to stay. So I just take that. I click on description of criteria. We're going to give the first criteria. So somebody tell me what they would be looking for in a reading presentation. If you could put it in the chat. But you're gonna design this rubric for me. What do we put? And that's something I also ask students to tell me what needs to be included in the rubric. And that's a very useful approach. Get them to help you build.
They say comprehension, and then we also have fluency.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to update this. Okay, so now I'm going to add a criteria, and that is going to be new criteria, it says, and I want a new criterion, and I'm going to call it fluency. Now, I can also give it a long description. I can be much more specific for my students about that criteria. So fluency, yes, and what do I mean by that? What am I looking for? So that my students see what I'm looking for, and then they can be successful because you've told them what you're looking for. I mean, we want our students to get A's, don't we? So you can see it's as simple as that. Now you might have 10 criteria for this assignment. You might have 10. So if you have 10 criteria, you have to decide how many points this thing is worth, right? Let's just say we have 10 criteria that we're looking for, and comprehension is one of those 10. Well, by the way, I can of course edit, so I can edit this and make it spelled correctly, but otherwise it'll just drive me nuts. Okay, so then how many points?
Jimmy also added procedure, and Jimmy is offering 10 points.
Oh, okay. New criteria, procedure. And we're going to say 10 points. And we're going to say that there are 10 items on this rubric. And so I'm going to make each one count 1 point, so that ultimately it's going to add up to 10. See, that tells me total points 3. So I shared with you that sometimes my rubrics are just 1 or 0. They either done it or they haven't. If I want to have a unacceptable all the way to excellent, unacceptable, fair, good, excellent, let's go with that. So, but if I've got 4, what do I have to do? So then I'm going to say 1, and that is for excellent. And then I have to make some decisions. So that was 0 points, and then I'm going to add a good, and that's going to be, so I'll say 0.5 for good, and then 0 is for unacceptable. Then this one should be the 0.25. So you play with it. You get it to where it says what you want it to say. It does say what I want it to say now, except this should say fair. Oh gosh. So yeah. So that's the way you do it. You'll be playing with it too when the time comes. So 1 to 0.5 to 0.25 to 0, and that makes 1 possible, right? When the students receive this, they see it. When you receive it in the grade book, you get to click on their level of acceptability, and it adds it up for you. Canvas adds it up for you. and it'll ultimately give you whatever percentage they have out of the 10 points. And then when you say submit, it goes straight to the grade book. So you've got the points there, right there in that grade book. Makes it very easy. And then you know what it does next? Boom, it goes to the next student in the grade book in that assignment. So it's a way of just, it's a very little clicking. It's very, very easy. It's wonderful. And then I say create rubric. It's pretty funky right now because it only has 3 criteria, but there it is. Okay, it's a total of 3 points, of course, now because I didn't use 10 criteria as we talked about. So I have now created a rubric for the reading presentation. And my next step then is, okay, here I've got this lovely rubric, but I don't have an assignment associated with it right now. And I have to associate it with an assignment. So I'm going to go up to my menu again, and I'm going to go to assignments. And do you know what I do? And this isn't necessary, but I create the rubric before I create the assignment, because I require myself to analyze that assignment well enough to where I have a good idea how I want to grade that assignment. Then I create the assignment. Then I tell students what I want them to do and give them the rubric. Okay, so now I'm in assignments. This is the list of assignments in the class. And of course, what I do is I go to plus assignment because I want to add my reading assignment. So add assignment. I'm going to say 3 points just to be honest. I've only got it made at 3 points right now. And I'm going to call it reading presentation. And I'm concerned about the fluency and the comprehension, etc. And then it gives me choices. And I'm going to say save. And then look what it does. Now I want to add a rubric. So all that plus sign sure is helpful. So I say plus rubric. And I can either create the rubric for this assignment at this point, but I already have. So I'm going to say find a rubric. And I say find a rubric. And then it gives me my list of rubrics that I have created. I'm going to scroll down through this list. Oh, here we go.
There was a question on the rubric when you're creating it. Can you add a longer description under unacceptable, fair, good?
Yes, absolutely. And you'll probably want to, add more specifics regarding what you're looking for and such. Yes. Oh, manage rubrics. Let's go there and see what we can find. Manage rubrics. Well, I can go back to my rubric. And we can look at how to do what was just asked. Oh, there it is. Okay, so yes, we can do specifics, edit rubric. So I get in here and then I can describe that criteria, that level of comprehension that I'm looking for. What's excellent? What constitutes excellence in comprehension? I can get that here and fill it in. So I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint because I have some resources for you. I don't expect you to remember all this, but when you get into Canvas, you'll see as you play with it, as you explore it, you'll be able to build modules very easily using that plus sign and build rubrics very easily and tie them to assignments. But all I have to do is click on the cell where someone turns something in and boom, that rubric comes up and that person's work comes up and I'm able to look at it and go through the rubric and check yes or no. And then, of course, it has a comment space so that you can write to your students about their work. I am going to stop screen sharing and go back to the PowerPoint because I do have some resources that I want to share with you. Okay, I do want to share with you Rubistar, which is a tool, an online tool that allows you to build rubrics, but because you've got Canvas, you don't need to use it to build rubrics. What you need to do is use it to find rubrics. Teachers all across the world have developed rubrics on multiple topics. And so if you go to Rubistar, you can find these. You do have to sign up, but they're free. You can log in and then you can see rubrics on topics, all topics under the stars. Rubistar.forteachers It's just a wonderful, wonderful site for rubrics. But again, if you Google something that you're wanting to teach, type in second grade rubric on weather. Almost anything. And when you say go, something's almost certainly going to come up. There's samples of rubrics at this point for so much. I want to share with you this last website, basically, which is online support for Canvas and for Google Classroom. This is the Canvas site that shows you how to create modules, ideas for creating modules, and just how to do it, because I certainly don't expect you to remember everything. And then this is a rubrics tutorial for Canvas, Google Classroom tutorial, and then your Google Classroom in general tutorial, Canvas in general tutorial, and then specific module tutorial, specific rubrics tutorial. So those are online, those online helps are there, and you can get, good information from those. But please feel free to ask me if you would like. If you think there are others that would like a little bit of a heads up on the importance of modules in Canvas. Again, my expertise is in Canvas, less in Google. And I want to say that once you've modularized, I'm going to repeat this, once you've modularized, I think you're going to want to keep doing it. Even when you go back face to face, you're going to want that hybrid, that opportunity for your students to be on the web working through modules. For them, it's work that they can do where they're on their own. They're working independently or in groups with each other and getting good work done. I can't imagine going back. Okay, that's the news here. Thank you so much.